You're tuned to the Witching Hours, episode 11. I'm your host, Kanaska Carter, and today I'm going to be telling you a couple of ghost stories, or stories associated with people that I knew that passed away, and then I had visitation from them after they died. So the first story that I'm going to tell you is of my grandmother, Sue Carter. So I was in my tattoo shop, this was years ago, sitting in my office, and I was drawing an image of the Grim Reaper holding a woman in his arms. And what happened next was, as I was drawing this, my chair began to shake. The candle on my desk began to shake. And I thought, maybe I was losing my mind. Why is this happening, And then right before midnight, I hear at the door, it was like 2 knocks. So I went to open the door and see if somebody was there. And when I opened the door, there was nobody there. This door led to the bathrooms in the hallway. And then next to that, there was a pet store. There was nobody there. So I was kind of freaked out about that. I thought maybe it was some sort of a janitor or something, that I had no idea what was going on. So anyway, the next morning, come to find out that my grandmother died. I told my cousin what had happened, and he got goosebumps from that. But that wasn't even the strangest thing that happened associated with her death. So I have mentioned before, when I've seen spirits, they are not transparent. They're solid, just like humans. And so this was about a month and a half after my grandmother had passed away. And we had a connection because our birthdays were 3 days apart. I was standing at the bus stop at nighttime outside of my tattoo shop. And my grandmother would always make jokes about the name Eli for some reason. She just thought it was funny. I remember being in Newfoundland and she would just make jokes about that name. And I had my headphones in, and I could hear out of my right ear somebody said, "Eli?" I looked down, and my grandmother is staring at me. She looked a little bit shorter than she normally was when she was alive, the last time I saw her. And it's interesting, I was watching videos a while ago, and this man had the same description of his father. He said his father looked shorter. I'm just getting goosebumps even talking about it. And that was the first time I ever heard somebody else describe a spirit being shorter than they were when they were alive. I'm getting full body chills right now. Anyway, so she said, "Eli?" I don't know how I heard it over my headphones, but I looked down and she's staring at me in the eyes with a cigarette in her hand, and she goes, "A light?" She wanted me to light the cigarette for her. So I proceeded to, shockingly, in disbelief, take the cigarette from her and light it and then hand it back to her. And she was just kind of talking about how she didn't know, she couldn't do it or something, right? And then she walked away laughing and smiling. And it's funny because she had like half a lung. She had lung cancer when she was alive. She was a smoker for most of her life. So it's just interesting that that is what the interaction was. And she was asking me to light this cigarette for her. And then the last thing I remember, she's walking away and she's laughing and she's standing under the street light. That was the last I ever saw of her, because I couldn't go to Newfoundland for the funeral. It's too expensive to go down for. I've never been to a funeral in Since I moved up here in 1998, I've missed everybody's funerals. But I feel like that was her paying me one last visit, coming to say hello one last time. This next story that I'm going to tell you happened on Remembrance Day. And this is another case where the spirit was solid, did not look see-through like it is usually depicted in the movies. They depict them as these see-through images, when every time I've seen a spirit or an entity, they've been solid, like you and me. So, this was Remembrance Day, 2017. And I was on my friend's land working on my trailer, and I wanted to do some repairs with my circular saw. I wanted to add some more wood paneling to the trailer. So it was nighttime, so I wanted to make sure it was okay with my friends. So I walked up to the front of their house, and the land that I was living on, the guy was in the Navy, and he would go all out for Remembrance Day and set up everything. He would make wooden tombstones and cutouts of army soldiers, and he had a huge projector screen projecting the slideshow that he made for Remembrance Day. So I walked up to the front of the land and to go and ask them if, it was okay if I could use the circular saw, and hoping it wouldn't bother them. And once I approached the front of their house, I noticed they had the ceremony going, and there was 3 men in military uniform standing with their hands were like this in front of them. So they were standing like that with their heads down, just paying their respects. So I was like, oh. And then I walked back to my trailer. I didn't want to bother them, right? So as I was walking back to my trailer, my friend comes around. She says, I see her come around. She says, hey, can I ask him? Come here. So I go up and I said, yeah, I was going to ask if I could do some repairs, but I noticed you guys were having a ceremony. Didn't want to bother you. She said, come and join us. So I went up to the front where everybody was, and there were no men in military uniform. And I saw 3 of them standing there with their heads down, paying their respects. I'm getting goosebumps every time I tell this story. And I told her, I said, I saw 3 men standing here in military uniform with their heads lowered, their hands crossed in front of them, and they were paying their respects to what was happening with the ceremony. And she said, oh my God, I think you saw a ghost. So I am a medium as part of my line of work. I speak to the dead for a living, so I'm not surprised that spirits have appeared to me as many times as they have. So she said, maybe you should tell Dennis what you saw. So I told him I saw 3 men in military uniform paying their respects to what you have going on here for your ceremony. And he looked like he was going to cry. And he told me that he had 3 friends that died in the Navy. 3 male friends that died in the Navy. And he had 1 dog tag each tattooed on his arm. He had 3 dog tags, and I forgot I even did that tattoo for him. And when he showed me the tattoo I had done, I just got full body chills. Because it had been a while. I think it had been like a year since I did that tattoo for him, so I completely forgot about it. And it just, his mother had died that year, so he was just so thankful because he felt super alone that year. And it's just so funny because, our spirits can come and visit, and even though we may not always see them, they are there sometimes, and it's a beautiful thing because even though the physical body dies, the spirit and the soul is still there, and eventually it is reincarnated. I believe that. Has anything like this ever happened to you? Please let me know in the comments. I will be telling more ghost stories and encounters that I've had with spirits over the years on future episodes. But these two encounters in particular were very interesting to me, and I get goosebumps every time I tell these stories because it's like it just transports me back there. And I find whenever I tell a story that has to do with the spirit and I get goosebumps, it's because what I'm telling is the truth. And it's like the spirit is confirming that yes, this happened and you are correct with what you're saying. So if anything like this has ever happened to you, let me know in the comments. Shoot me a message. I want to hear from you. So yeah, it's comforting to know that we don't really ever go away. Our spirit does live on, whether it is for a short time in between being in a physical body, and then, when we're reincarnated as well, our spirit goes back into another physical body. So that's it for this episode of The Witching Hours. I'm your host, Kanaska Carter. I put a spell on you, and now you're mine.